we don't know how to act. Yeah, I'm pointing out facts. If I point a finger, that's point of attack. Good point, who's next? Flag on the plate, now I'm causing them death. We bet on ourselves, so what you expect? A die-hard fan, never live with regret. Yes, sir. Go to my neck, go to my neck. Burgundy flex. Who wants to smoke? We bringing it home. Be my guest. Look how we step. Who we got next? Step on the right, step on the left. Who do we rep? Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Left side. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Watch the middle. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? High off the way that this sound, they turn up as soon as they feet the ground. I am not playing around. I hit them, I bet that they feeling me now.
Welcome, one and all across the nation and around the world. I welcome you all to episode 28 of the Commanders Gridiron Report here on October 11th, a special day, a special time. We are here together. We got to talk about the fact that the Commanders routed the Browns 34-13 to win the fourth game in a row. I am Drew Willingham. How does the background look? How do I sound? How are you tonight on Friday, October 11th, 2024? Usually we do this show on Tuesdays, but for about the fourth consecutive week now, I've done this show on Friday, whether it be in the afternoon or in the evening. Time's kind of differentiated depending on my schedule, as I have been a busy mother father out here in these streets, but not complaining at all. It's a good thing. But the good thing is also that we are here together right here and now. So those of you watching on YouTube, whether it be on the Sertoba Media channel,
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome,
or on Team MBS Media, or on Facebook for A7BN Sports, or on Twitch. Thank you, as always. Oh, can't forget the LinkedIn page if you are managing to watch it there too, but mainly for the other ones previously mentioned. Again, I am Drew Willingham. Thank you all for tuning in. Mickey Delaney, Sick Diggy, and the rest of you that I see. I will get to your comments here momentarily, but we do have to get this show started. It's episode 28. It's been an exciting year. Don't drink the Kool-Aid yet. Remember, we talked about that last week, and I may or may not be talking about that again. As again, look at all these opponents that the Commanders have faced, and look at their records. Look what they have produced inside and outside of those games. And this is coming from a Commanders fan on paper. It was born into it, into the old school ways. They may or may not change the name back. Who knows? We'll get back to that all later on. But we got to talk about the fact that we have a first and 10 to talk about, and that is the Cleveland Browns when they came to Northwest Stadium, formerly known as FedEx Field, to take on the Commanders.
They are the Washington Commanders. New name, new marks, new uniform.
Soldiers, are we ready for Operation Burgundy?
And here with the first and 10, the Washington Commanders in Northwest Stadium this past weekend. Week 5 action on October 6th at Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, hosted the Browns and whooped their candy expletives 34-13. Wow, what a routing that was. And we're going to get right into it here with the Burgundy Flex review momentarily. But just for a second, Commanders fans, formerly known as the REDSKINS fans, enjoy this moment. The fourth in a row that we're going to cover throughout this show. The fourth win in a row. This team only had 4 wins all of last year. And after 5 weeks, you're enjoying seeing that number as part of a winning record right now. Who would have thought 5 weeks in that you would see your team 4-1? You can't say that you thought that. And I mean, hey, you're talking to somebody who has a tattoo of the formerly known as the REDSKINS on his arm. Okay. He, meaning me, didn't see that happening either. I didn't see this happening. So enjoy it. Relish in the moment that you are at 4 wins. You win your 4th in a row as a fan. Someone who has stayed loyal to this team, like myself. You don't quit when times are tough. Every franchise in sports at some point hits a decline. I mean, some take a couple decades, couple and a half decades. I mean, look at the Cowboys too. I mean, theirs hasn't been ugly at points, but they have had ugly moments. So our bitter rival, they can look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, we've dealt with something similar to that. And by the end of it all, it's looking better for the Commanders because that bad time in ownership is now over. That owner is out of here, for one. Got new ownership, got new management. 22 starters are on the field between offense and defense, and the Commanders lead the league in different starters with 17 new starters this year in comparison to what they had last year. That is number one in the NFL currently. So the biggest overall that's ever been done, but it's one of the biggest. And if they win out this year and have a great year, I mean, there's going to be some losses in there. Prepare yourselves, buckle up. You got a tough matchup this weekend, and we'll get to that here momentarily. But for the 1st and 10 to see this turnaround, for them to rout the Browns 34-13, you have to be excited. And even if you're a fan / analyst for the team, and I've been very critical of them at times when they have not been playing like this, you can go back and check the past 5 or 6 years with my name attached to it and talk about that team. I've not been able to talk about this team in this positive of a light since I started doing this back in 2017 with working with the media in some type of capacity. So, yes, it is definitely great. I've enjoyed the wins throughout those times, right? If I've been in attendance and seen them live and they've won, I've definitely embraced the moment, but also been realistic about the season to that point and what to expect moving forward, and have been pretty close to being spot on. This one's still up in the air, and I've been very honest since the beginning of this season that just like every year, it takes me until about week 7, week 8, week 9 to get a true feel for this team, and I'm still going to reiterate that tonight, no matter where you're watching this at, to those of you watching between Team MBS Media, Sartoba Media, and other platforms. Thank you for just now tuning into those of you who just tuned in as this continues to grow, because we just got started. We got a lot to talk about. We're in the 1st and 10. We're in the first segment of this show. And again, the Commanders routing the Browns 34-13. If you're a fan of football, and especially a fan of this team and this franchise, you have to be excited right now for what's to come, as there are definitely a lot of great things to come if they're doing this early. And we'll talk about that as this episode moves on. And with that, let's take it into the Burgundy Flex review.
Go to my neck, Burgundy Flex. Pour out the smoke, we bringing it home. Be like that.
And here with the Burgundy Flex review, shout out to Bowie TV and Darrell Owens for the photos that we're going to use in this segment right here. This right here, Dyami Brown, that one epic catch that this guy made here in the second quarter with 36 seconds left in the half. Catches a 41-yard dart from Jaden Daniels. An Austin Seibert kick made it 24-3 going into halftime. And Darrell got some great photos on this day. And we're going to go through basically the photos that tell the story of the day. I mean, this game right here was something special to watch if you are a Commanders fan. But before we get into, or just a fan of football in general, but before we get into that, I want to acknowledge the chat, no matter where you're chatting from. Mickey Delaney and Sick Diggy are in the house. He started it out earlier as we were getting into the intro with "Let's go." My man Mick is finally back in the house. Speaking of somebody else is also back in the house, Ike Doesn't Give a Fuck is back in the house saying, yo, what's good, everybody? Says Sick Diggy. Sick was here earlier with myself and Ryan McCarthy as we did Total Football Talk Extra. Go back and check out that episode when you get a chance on Sartoba Media, Comey Media, and even on his platforms on No Credentials Required, as well as his personal platforms. Sharing the wealth. Myself, it was fun to produce that show earlier, co-produced with the transitions and stuff that Cole Johnson put together as we worked together with that project on the original show each and every week, Total Football Talk. But Total Football Talk Extra is a little side project that we have to be able to continuously talk about CFL, Canadian football, and their teams within the league, as I've had a growing passion for the league over the recent years. And Ryan's been into the CFL for decades and is a great person to be able to talk that league with. So I have fun each and every Friday, 5:00 p.m. Eastern time, between Total Football Talk and Total Football Talk Extra. They are the two shows that are definitely the same time each and every week that I'm a part of, whether I'm co-producing on Monday or producing on Friday. This show is normally on Tuesdays as scheduled at 1 p.m., but until some things balance out, I've got to do it on Friday evenings for right now, afternoon or evening. So thank you to those of you taking the time to watch this right now. And as always, if you're just tuning in for the first time, subscribe now and never miss out on new content with Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. Click that like button and keep on commenting, as we got a lot to talk about with this Commanders team tonight. And Mick says, hi, Ike. Hi, Sick. I need both of you to stay in your lanes as I am watching, and I appreciate that, Mick. Bringing in the heat in the comments. Just slow your roll, Drew. They are still the Commanders, he says. He is still, my man, the Seahawks fans coming in here, talking smack, and pretty much saying,
acknowledge me.
Look at what happened to your team last night. You know, some fair-weathered fans of the 49ers side could definitely give you a hard time when it comes to that. So you need to slow your route. You need to slow your roll down as well.
That's terrible.
Probably what you're saying on the other side. Love you, my man. Glad to have you back in the comments. Six says, no happy endings for the notorious wet towel. He is referring to Deshaun Watson of the Cleveland Browns. It may or may not be a great ending, happy ending for him at some point, because his career has definitely fallen off the rails. It definitely has completely come off the rails. And unless he does something to turn it around real quick, because he's got some talent over there in wideouts, or at least we thought, unless they're completely washed up. I doubt the whole entire team for the Browns is washed up. It's more so his legal troubles and all the time that he spent away due to injuries or the troubles and all that stuff. It definitely impacted his career, because he has not been the same since all that stuff came out and since he went through those big tales of woes. So looking at that, it's definitely been wild. The running trio of Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, and Jeremy McNichols did an amazing job rushing. Jaden Daniels wasn't too shabby running the ball either, and we're definitely going to touch back up on that comment and whatever else you have on top of that as we go into the show. So as we look into the Burgundy Flex review, right, we're starting this out. Let's look at the first quarter. From the point that the game started all the way to the end, the Commanders were never losing at all. They were always leading each and every quarter as they started up the first quarter and ended the first quarter with a 7-0 lead, as Brian Robinson Jr. scored his first of 2 touchdowns. A 4-yard touchdown run with Austin Seibert's kick made it 7-0. And, you know, we can look through these pictures that Darrell has for us. You know, this was the matchup that we had between these two teams. This is the defensive line going against this offensive line of the Browns. And the defensive line of the Commanders absolutely had their way with them. We're used to seeing the Browns defense keeping that team in games and keeping these games close with the way their defensive line played, and they were outmatched on this day. The Commanders line stepped up, and these moves they made over the past offseason, especially with Nick Algoretti, because he was having his way each and every play, it felt like, in this game. Nick Algoretti showed why he was a good staple to that offensive line over there in Kansas City and why he has the Super Bowls that he does. And they've been struggling in Kansas City, and their offensive line could use Nick Algoretti this year. And for him to be that staple for the Commanders offense has been something special to watch. I mean, look at this right here. This is absolutely wild. I mean, if it wasn't for what the defense was doing here, I know I was talking about the offense, but let's look at the defense. They were having their way. I mean, I'm talking about the offense and the defense at the same breath. So looking at that, that's what we had in this game. You got this catch in the second quarter. as I was talking about earlier, you look at the fact that going through the second quarter, we ended it with De'Ami Brown's catch right here. But we also have to talk about the impacts throughout that quarter, because the only time the Browns scored was early into the second quarter when they made it a 7-3 game. Dustin Hopkins kicked a 51-yarder, which is a former Washington team player from back in the day when they were formerly known as the Redskins. Dustin Hopkins has been around that long, but he kicks a field goal to make it 7-3. Now, Austin Seibert added with that to make it a 10-3 game on the other side for the Commanders, a 27-yard field goal on the next drive. Austin Seibert made it a 10-3 game at that point. The Commanders still up by 1 score. You fast forward to later in the second quarter with 3 minutes left in the half. Brian Robinson Jr. scored his second touchdown on the day, his second rushing touchdown. It was a 1-yard run followed by Austin Seibert's kick again. This made it a 2-touchdown game. The Commanders were up 17-3 at this point. Then they get the ball back to the Browns. The Browns end up punting it away. Commanders get one last shot inside 2 minutes left in the game. And De'Ami Brown catches a 41-yard dart from Jaden Daniels. That's this picture right here. Catches this ball right here into the end zone. He goes, look at the way, I'll even take this scrolling banner away. Look at his feet placement on this catch, on that 41-yard dart. Just inside, knew where he was. It looks like he's holding a small child in his hands as he's running into the end zone. Great work. Definitely had separation from the Cleveland defenders, and that's why he was able to score that touchdown. Looking throughout this game as well, look at the connection between the players on this day. Jaden Daniels was absolutely playing great. He did probably have his worst game of the year, however, if we look at it. He was playing great in the moments that mattered, but he did look like a rookie in some points, which we'll get to here shortly. But if you look at the defense, Frankie Luvu definitely has been a huge pickup this past offseason for this team. Playing well as their linebacker on the defensive side has definitely been a leader to spark the production that this team has gotten out of the defense, with keeping the team close each and every game and building bigger leads as time goes on throughout the game. Because early on, it was close because of the defense. And now the team is only getting better as the weeks go on. And you see, he's still celebrating in this picture right here. Shout out to Darrell Owens for these awesome pictures. You see right here, this is another example of the defense applying pressure here on this team. Now, look at the pressure that was applied to the Commanders. Not as much when you look at the fact that the points that were given up, 34 points in comparison to 13 by the Browns. But in this photo, you can just see there is some mind expletives going on, and that expletive starts with an S. There are some mind expletives going on with this. Looking at the stare down between the two. Strong is definitely not as strong as it looks on the back of his jersey there, as he's looking like he's already lost due to the battle of the mind expletives. Now back to here. Look at Brian Robinson Jr. celebrating in one of his touchdown runs. Celebrating with the Hogs. They're still keeping the legacy of the Hogs alive with this Commanders team. He is hyped that things have turned around in such a short period of time, and that he is still one of the starters that are left from the previous regime. Now look at Jaden Daniels right here. This was the picture that I selected as the thumbnail, because you look at how he is running, eyes ahead. You look at the defender in the background laying down on the ground, face first pretty much in the ground. Jaden Daniels is taking off with a run right here. He's taking off. It's something we've seen all year long from this kid, as he has been playing. Well, he's been having a lot of plays set up for RPOs, which are run pass options. And this was one where the other team definitely failed to contain him. This is why this was selected as the thumbnail for this show. Now, Jonathan Allen getting the pressure on Deshaun Watson. Jonathan Allen on the day definitely did the same throughout the game from start to finish. You look at what he did, applying the pressure right there on Deshaun Watson, which isn't hard because you look at how Deshaun Watson has been playing. But the man had 4 tackles on the day, and that was his one and only sack of the day that he had on Deshaun Watson. But as you see, that look of terrifying, or that he was scared. He was absolutely scared in that moment of Jonathan Allen, that being Deshaun Watson, and that is why he absolutely won the battle in that moment, registering his one and only sack, and he did it by himself. Have to give him the credit where he deserves it in this moment. Now, looking on, this is him afterwards, all hype for what he just did, followed by the fans loving the moment. They have definitely been taking command over the past 4 weeks, winning 4 consecutive games. This was at home at Northwest Stadium, so you know the Commanders fans were definitely in full effect. It's good to see this team back to selling out their stadium, now called Northwest Stadium instead of FedEx Field. It's definitely good to see these fans getting hype over these wins that have been happening over the past month, and as a fan base for what you have had to endure for the past decade, since we thought we had our last savior with Robert Griffin III in 2012. It's been a long 12 years. There's been some ups and downs. There's been some playoff berths, but early exits. And this gives you hope that maybe not this year, because it's still early to tell, but within the next 5 years, we're going to see this team make a run. And I think in the next 5 years, they continue to build on what they have and have already established. This team could be in the Super Bowl by that point, but not right now. And we'll get to why here in a little bit. As again, we look at these photos, the fans getting hype in the moment. Got to take a look at Jaden Daniels loving and embracing the moments as they go throughout this game. You got the sacks, and you got the big plays that were registered by this kid right here. So between the defense and in the offense with what he's doing, he is loving it, which is why you see him embracing the moment as they are making moves throughout this game. Frankie Louvu, just as we talked about earlier with him celebrating here and celebrating there, getting all hype in this game, had 2.5 sacks on the day. He was on fire, and the spark for this team, had 4 tackles and 3 assists. He is definitely the MVP of this defense for this game and deserves to be recognized, as so as the fans did. And even he was enjoying the sacks and the production that he was making throughout this game. Looking at the fans again, the Hogs, everybody loving this moment from what they're getting from their team. You can see the fans in full effect in this game from here to here, and then even with what they were doing in the background of this right here, the De'Ami Brown catch that we talked about first. This was the celebration of that. Again, he does look like he's holding a small child in his hands in the end zone for that catch, but you have to take a look at the celebration. Brotherhood, unity, everybody having a great time out there, and that's the recipe for success. Will this continue? Only time will tell. And then looking ahead right here, we have to take a look at, again, more defensive matchups. This right here with what Tillman was doing, standing straight up pretty much, looking like the fear of God was in his eyes. He was definitely not enjoying this time out here on this field. Now, looking at this Commanders team and looking at what they did throughout this game, we have to take a look at what they did throughout the overview of it. We've discussed the first half pretty much before I went through the rundown of the photos. But now we got to take a look at the second half. The second half was pretty much quiet in comparison to the first half because the Commanders put up 24 of their 34 points in the first half. They only scored 10 points the whole second half in comparison to the Browns, who scored 10. So they pretty much tied it up throughout the second half. It was 10-10. But the damage was already done in the first half, and the Browns couldn't make up for the deficit they were in. As inside the third quarter, the first score was by the Browns, a 31-yard field goal by Dustin Hopkins, which made it a 24-6 game, followed by another touchdown by the Commanders, their last touchdown of the day. But Jeremy McNichols, who made an impact in the previous game by scoring touchdowns, and that saying touchdowns, saying it because he meant to have not 1 but 2 on the day is what he did. He did score another one this week. Last week, Brian Robinson Jr. only scored 1 touchdown, and this week he scored 2. So between the 2 running backs, they have scored 3 touchdowns in the past 2 games. When you're establishing the run like they are, not necessarily with huge numbers, but with the amount of carries that you're having to set up RPOs and to also get your wide receivers cooking at the same time, along with your young quarterback who can establish his own run within the RPOs. It's a recipe for great success on the day, as that's what they've been doing for the past 4 weeks with wins. But over the course of the past 2 to 3 weeks has been where the offense has really stepped up. Because let's not forget that first game, the offense was moving the chains, but they couldn't get it in the end zone when they were playing the Giants in week 2, coming off of a loss in week 1 to the Buccaneers. And then in week 2, it was a battle of the field goals, 7-6. That's pretty much how it worked out. It was a 7-6 game, even though it was 21-18, because it was 7 field goals to 6. We have to take a look at that right here and now. And I clicked the wrong banner as we went back to here, so my apologies to those of you who are still watching live or watching this syndicated. I was in the middle of my rant right there talking about the second half of the game, and I clicked the wrong expletive button. So we were at the Jeremy McNichols touchdown, which made it 31-6, followed by an Austin Seibert 30-yard field goal towards the end of the third quarter with 2 minutes left. The Commanders were up 34-6 at this point, and they wouldn't turn back, as after that, even though the fourth quarter, it was pretty much garbage time, Deshaun Watson threw a 10-yard pass to get his only touchdown on the day to Jordan Atkins, with the Dustin Hopkins kick made it 34-13. And the amount of time that was left in the game was 7 minutes and 2 seconds. But the Commanders got the ball back and pretty much ran the clock out consistently throughout the rest of that. As we look at the Browns, Deshaun Watson, 15-28, 125 yards and 1 touchdown. Didn't do his job as the quarterback and didn't establish much of a passing offense. When you look at that beyond the fact that they had no running game, because they definitely have been missing Nick Chubb since he got hurt last year, even though when they had Joey Flacco, he was out there getting it done as the backup. And boy, did they miss him, because right now they would be doing better with him, and they might even be doing better with Jameis Winston, who is their backup and its starter, because I feel like they would have scored more than 13 points. This Commanders defense has definitely been showing that they are definitely should be considered as for real. But until they play the Ravens this upcoming week, I'm a little skeptical, and we'll get into that more as this show continues. But Jerome Ford, 9 carries, 47 yards on the day, just wasn't getting it done for me and for everybody else who was watching this running game for the Browns. I mean, 9 carries, 47 yards, along with Dante Foreman's 9 carries for 44 yards. Yes, between the two of them, they had 91 yards, and it set up plays to where they were able to get nearly 30 passing plays off. 28 of them was what Deshaun Watson did. And Jameis Winston did come in for a 1 pass attempt to have a 1-of-1 for 16 yards. So technically they were just under 30 pass attempts with 29 combined. But, their running game is setting up the passing plays, that being in Cleveland. But they're just not getting it done because Deshaun Watson's not what he was. And I don't think he ever will find it again. So put in Jameis. That's my advice going forward after looking at this game. For the Commanders, continue to do what you're doing. The one thing that if they continue to play, I would say Jaden Daniels 14-25, not horrible. We've seen worse out of other quarterbacks who have done better, okay, in some cases, but also put up numbers like this and done worse. 2 consecutive weeks with interceptions. I'm concerned about that. If he continues to have those type of numbers, it's not going to look good moving forward for him and this team. If he continues to have interceptions and they build and have more interceptions on top of that, I think it's going to be a rough road. We're going to really see that this weekend when they play in Baltimore. But we'll get to that when we're previewing that game. As far as this game right here, Jaden Daniels did enough and only turned the ball over once. So he did it enough, along with the defense stepping up and doing what they did. The biggest thing was this offense stepping up against that defensive front, and the offensive line did their job, spearheaded by Nick Algoretti. I can't emphasize it enough. Had this offensive line been established last year, Sam Howell would have been able to do similar things. Not like Jaden Daniels has done with the RPO because he wasn't mobile. But I think that he would have won games, just not as flashy as what we've seen over the past 2 weeks. Because remember, the first win they got against the Giants, as I brought it up earlier, it's a little 7 field goals to 6. There's not much action that day. Over the course of the past 3 weeks between the Browns, the Bengals, and now the Browns, the Bengals, and the Cardinals, which is where it started off with, we've seen the explosiveness come out because they finally unlocked some hidden gems within this team in this offensive line. And I've got a lot more to say about that as we go throughout this show. We still have 4 more segments to cover. But as you know, throughout every single show that we do here, we have to take a commercial break. And we have to acknowledge the comments from you guys as well after that. So when we come back here in about 2 minutes from the commercial break, we shall do that. Thank you as always for tuning into this show, and I'll see you here in about 2.5 minutes.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Whether it's news, the largest egg producer finds bird flu in chickens at a Texas plant, weather, devastating tornadoes rip through the heart of the United States, inspiration, a breast cancer survivor completed the journey of chemotherapy, and now begins a future one of matrimony or sports. Michael Jordan is shown on a photo with Diddy. LeBron James has a video extolling the virtues of a Diddy party. This has been yet another beating a dead horse presentation. We got you covered. BS3 Network, in association with Comey Media Incorporated, proudly present The Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. Live every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ DWillie87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie Bucks?
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Drew Willingham.
In this case, yeah, you put the blame on Kyle Shanahan for apparently not preparing the team enough for the overtime rules, supposedly.
Cole Johnson.
Peyton was considered a winner, and he was the darling of all darlings for Gerald.
With a special appearance by Tyrone Alizé McDummy.
Ain't nobody calling me. Text. Delete.
Join these two football enthusiasts as they give you Total Football Talk. Live every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central on the Sertoba Media and the Comey Media YouTube channels.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Welcome back to the Commanders Gridiron Report, day on October 11th, 2024. We're here to discuss episode 28. As we previously discussed, the Commanders routing the Browns 34-13 to win their 4th game in a row. I am Drew Willingham. Thank you for watching this, as always, through Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome, Team MBS Media, and currently still A7BN Sports. Now, looking at this all right here for what it is, let's go ahead and take it to our Soldiers of the Week and look at our MVPs from this past game.
Where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
We're going to start with the honorable mention yet again. Jeremy McNichols, 7 carries for 44 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. The reason why I put him back on here is because last week he had 2 rushing touchdowns. The kid has 3 rushing touchdowns between the past 2 weeks, as well as another running back that we'll talk about here in a second. Now, there's only one person that I would put on this list that I'm going to go ahead and discuss right now. I didn't have room to put him on the other graphic, for one. And for 2, I didn't have time. So we're going to talk about Frankie Louvu. I mean, this guy was on fire for the defense. 2.5 sacks on the day, led in sacks for this game, okay, between both teams. The only other person that was right behind him was Bobby Wagner, who had 1.5 sacks, who had that other half of the sack with Frankie Louver for 1. Between the two of them combined for 4 sacks. And also one other person who had 1 sack that we talked about earlier being Jonathan Allen. Between the three of them, there were 5 sacks on the Browns quarterback, Deshaun Watson, on the day, which it's not really that hard to do that. But this defense was on fire, and they did a great job containing that offense. And the offense of this team played against a great defense that people have been talking about in the top 5 to 10 for a while, which is why the Browns have been as relevant as they have been in recent memory. So that's why there's 3 offensive players that are on this week's Soldiers of the Week. And you could probably argue 1 or 2 of them to be off of it, but I'm going to go ahead and pull that graphic up right now. As we take a look at Brian Robinson Jr., 7 carries for 18 yards. The yardage wasn't what is impressive on the day. The fact that he got 2 rushing touchdowns, had 1 last week, and just like the honorable mention right here of Jeremy McNichols, the 2 of them have 3 touchdowns within the past 2 weeks. I feel like that is a good enough reason to be back on this list. Between the 2 of them have 3 combined touchdowns in 2 weeks, and a big part in the red zone of why this team has been scoring. Another big person that we have to put up here, his numbers aren't as flashy as the past couple of weeks, but Jaden Daniels, after the 91% completion percentage on Monday Night Football against, the Bengals, you look at what he did, followed by this past one with 87% completion percentage. And then this week, what he did, it's not the same amount of numbers, but you look at the fact that he had 238 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. Yes, he did have an interception, and he has had an interception in the past 2 weeks, but he's been putting up consistent numbers with 238 passing yards. Again, not 300 passing yards, not flashy like big-time quarterbacks, but his completions to his interceptions ratios are definitely great for a rookie. He's doing a great job, as well as being mobile in the RPO options. 11 carries for 82 rushing yards on the day and 1 rushing touchdown. Also got to look at Terry McLaurin, who caught 4 of those 14 passes thrown by Jaden Daniels for 112 receiving yards, putting up a huge part to why Jaden Daniels was successful on this day. So between the rushing touchdowns between Jeremy McNichols and Brian Robinson Jr., as well as what Jaden Daniels did on the day, Terry McLaurin also was a huge part to this offense. So that is why I have all 4 of them as part of the Soldiers of the Week, 1 honorable mention, and 3 Soldiers of this week. Let's go ahead and take this to the next segment that we have here and take a look at the Showstopper.
High off the way that this sound, they turn up as soon as they feed the ground. I am not playing around. I hit them, I bet that they feeling me now.
Go from the Soldiers of the Week to the Showstopper. What adjustments can they make to improve from the Week 5 win? And we have this segment each and every week where whether you have all good, you have to look at the bad, right? You have to look at the things that impacted certain things that didn't go perfect, because a football game is hardly ever perfect. The closest we're going to see to that was a 90% completion percentage a couple weeks ago, along with his fantastic QBR rating that we've seen from those processes as well. Looking at this right here, you gave up 13 points. So you're still giving up points on the day. I mean, granted, the defense did great, but Deshaun Watson, for as bad as he was playing, I know it was garbage time. I know it was the 4th quarter. I know you probably should say lighten up a little bit because we only gave up a field goal in the 2nd quarter and a field goal in the 3rd quarter and no points in the 1st quarter. Like, what do you want from us if you're on the other side of this? I get that. But again, Deshaun Watson, there's no need and no excuse for him to be able to score on this defense in comparison to what they were doing to you or what you were doing to him throughout the first 3.5 quarters. Throughout the end of it, you gave up that 1 touchdown. As we look at the overview of that, It was only a 10-yard pass. I know. It wasn't anything flashy. It wasn't anything like that pass from Daniels to De'Ami Brown. But you still let him charge down the field. You still gave up a touchdown. If I were to look at things to improve on, finish what you start. Go hard all the way through, especially against somebody who's known for his incidents with the towel. Okay. That's going to be one. Besides the defense, the only other thing that I would say is Jaden Daniels, for a rookie, even though he had the 9 incompletions, he did really well. The only thing that I would say on his end is he's got 2 consecutive weeks with interceptions. It's only 1 per game. It's not the end of the world. He's still, in the positives over the negatives. Okay. I'm still loving what I'm seeing from this kid. Take a split second, a little bit longer, and see what you're reading, and be a little bit more careful, because those 11 incompletions, because you were 14 to 25, those 11 incompletions, even though one of them was an interception, so technically 10 incompletions. There were 3 other instances where out of those 10 incompletions, they could have easily been turnovers. So be careful. Be very careful with where you're throwing it. But we're not seeing a lot of him throwing it into double and triple coverage like in other teams with the quarterbacks making horrible reads. This kid is the real deal. So continue to build on what you've been laying down this year. You've been laying down a great foundation early on through 5 games as starting quarterback in the NFL. Take a split second longer, because again, out of those 10 incompletions, it was 11 because there was an interception, but I'm counting the actual 10 incompletions that you had. Out of those 10 incompletions, let's remember, 2 definite could have been potential turnovers, 2 potential interceptions, potentially 3 though, if you really look at those highlights hardcore. So, and I did that earlier in the day. I had to take a little break in between the show that I did earlier and now. But also I wanted to look at a couple more things, because I watched the entire game on Sunday, but I wanted to definitely look into those incompletions a little bit more. And there's not much more I can say beyond that, because the kid has been doing fantastic throughout these first 4 games that he's won. Well, the first 5 games in the past 4 games that he's won, but throughout the 5, he learned from that 17-point deficit that he had in week 1 against the Buccaneers and has been turning things around and has been doing a great job for this team throughout. So I have nothing but positive things to really say about him, but I would say be leery of where you're throwing the football and take a little bit more time. As Sick Diggy says, Daniels needs to spend more time in the video room studying the opposition's secondary, take more notes, and read the defenses better. Yes, he's not doing too bad of a job, because he has been doing that as far as reading the secondary, but he's still, you can see that in those 10 passes I was talking about where there was some confusion, because he wouldn't have probably thrown that ball into that particular space had he noticed what was really going on. And the pressures that they were putting on, there's going to be more moments where you're going to have Terry McLaurin being decoy, where he only gets 4 catches in a game like he did, but he's making the most out of his catches. And especially with all that emphasis being looked at Terry McLaurin, you set up what you did with that 41-yard dart to De'Ami Brown. So he's doing a decent job of spreading this ball out, because he's got multiple receivers that can catch it now. You look at not only De'Ami Brown, you got a catching running back with Austin Eckler, who caught 6 passes for 67 yards, coming back strong from that concussion that he had. Okay, so 6 passes for 67 yards is big. Very big by your running back, followed by, that my apologies. I was reading the rushing tabs, but he still had 2 catches for 30 yards, which is still pretty big. So, I mean, I was a little bit off on that one, but still, I mean, the rushing game was on top of it. That was another honorable mention I could have thrown out there, was with Austin Eckler and the 6 carries for 67 yards. 2 catches for 30 yards was what he had on the day. Besides Terry McLaurin's 4 catches for 112 yards, De'Ami Brown, even though part of it was that 41-yard catch for a touchdown, had 2 catches for 57 yards. So even the other catch was for 16 yards, still moving the chain on the day. So he's seeing things. He's finding the receivers that are open, because you wouldn't have gotten the results that you did out of it when you look at the catch like this, where it looks like he's holding a small child in the end zone. So at the end of the day, He's finding his receivers. De'Ami Brown, along with Terry McLaurin, and the Austin Eckler's a little bit of production. You also have Luke McCaffrey, who's finding his way to carve a space out within this offense, having 3 catches for 19 yards. People are starting to say that Zach Ertz is washed. They've been saying it for a little bit, considering the fact that he only had 2 catches for 10 yards. But still, it's averaging a 5-yard catch per play and per catch. So his action that he's getting in the game is still helping set up would be another play that would be closer towards getting a first down, or you're catching it inside of 3 yards left, 3rd and 3s, and you're still converting for first down. So you're still doing your job. Don't need you to run out and go 10, 15, 20 yards and get big plays like you used to in Philly back in the day. It just needs to be positive production. And that's what the Commanders are seeing, and positive leadership, and has built a better culture over there for this team. You got to be excited again if you're a fan watching this team out there. Outside of that, not much more production. Zacchaeus did add another catch for 10 yards, which did end up being a first down conversion on. So between all that, yes, I mean, Daniels does need to spend more time in the video room studying the opposition secondary. I will give you that. Every quarterback needs to, because until you have a perfect game, I mean, even at that point, you still want to keep it up. You still want to be able to do those things consistently. So you're going to have to watch and see what you did again on tape. You're going to have to watch and see what that defense did. And then you're not playing them multiple weeks in a row. It's not like baseball where you're playing everybody each and every night, 3 to 4 games in a row. And especially then in playoffs, like right now for Major League Baseball, consistently playing teams throughout in a series. You get one chance per week to play football. And that's why this game is very special, because there's a lot that goes in to 60 minutes of time that's played within a game. So looking at that it is for what it is. Shout out to Sick Diggy, who's bringing in the heat. I'd argue that the Commanders' offensive line needs to protect the pocket a lot more. Daniels can't be rushed. You know, Nick Algoretti was definitely the strong anchor for the offensive line, and he was having his way with the defensive line of the Browns. He was spearheading decent work on the Commanders' side of offense. But you have a point, because there's 5 people on an offensive line between your center and your 2 guards and your 2 tackles. So not only one person can do it by themselves. This right here, what you just said, Sick Diggy, is why I said what I said last week. Well, actually, earlier this week on Total Football Talk, and made it a short when talking about the Commanders after their 4th straight win against the Browns. Because I talked about this just not as in-depth as I would for the Commanders show, but I talked about this in brief context on Total Football Talk this past Monday. Bing! In words of my man Kyle Nash. But looking at this right here, you just brought up one of the big statements. The offensive line needs to protect the pocket a lot more. Now, if you have 1 or 2 people that are doing a great job on offense, that still lifts 3 other gaps that could potentially melt it down if you're having subpar, mediocre play by other players. This is why I said that this team is going to have to make more moves in the offseason, because this is going to break down at some point, and we're about to get into that here shortly, whether people want to hear it or not. This is just the reality of the situation. But before we get to that, we do have another question. Do the coaches train the players for hypothetical scenarios? Absolutely. They have that type of practice out when they do those things during practice, even parts where I've been part of it, as you know, of the media in the past, when they were formerly known as the REDSKINS, and even the Washington football team, and a couple practices that I attended after the name change for the Commanders last year. This team really, oh no, this was 2 years ago. They were still the Washington football team. I stand corrected. I went there as when they were the REDSKINS and the football team, but not since the Commanders, and especially not during this regime. I would imagine that they would practice scenarios, because other coaches did it, and it makes sense, especially 2-minute drills. Like, there's other hypothetical scenarios. I don't think you could practice for your offensive line melting down there. Really, you don't really want to practice your offensive line letting people through the A gaps and stuff. So, looking at this for what it is, That's a good question. And your answer is yes. But to the extent that they practice it, I can't answer that. But 2-minute drills and stuff like that. But when your offensive line breaks down, I don't anticipate that being a key subject in practice. And again, this is one of the big arguments that you could make. And Sick is definitely bringing up a great point right here when it comes to the offensive line. We do have more we have to discuss in this show. We still have 2 segments left to go. But with this being the end of the showstopper, we still have one more commercial break that we have to get to. And when we come back, we have the opponent of the week to discuss for this week 6 contest, as well as the final drive. I'll see you all here in about 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids on the Block, New Edition.
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie Bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ D Willie 87. Go ahead and hit him up on the Cash App and go ahead and give him some Willie Bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie Bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. Some Willie Bucks.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commanders Gridiron Report. If you want your Commanders to be repped right, well, D. Willie is your man. Commanders Gridiron Report. Every Tuesday at 1:05 p.m. Eastern, 12:05 a.m. Central. On the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J.KUL.
Where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side. Commanders, where my soldiers, right side. Commanders, where my soldiers, left side.
Welcome back to the Commanders Gridiron Report. I'm your host, Drew Willingham, as we are back on October 11th, 2024. For now, episode 28 of this show. We are back as we have things to discuss. We have many things to discuss still left in this program, and that is mainly the overview for what is to come for this team as we take it to the opponent of the week.
Look how we step. Who we got next? Step on the right, step on the left. Who do we rep?
This week, the Commanders travel not that far away. As for this Week 6 contest on October 13th at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Time, they go to Baltimore to take on the 3-2 Ravens. The Commanders 4-1 at this point. Coming into this game, definitely a huge test for this team coming into this week. I mean, it really is. It's a huge test. You look at what they've become over there in Baltimore since gaining Derrick Henry in the offseason. It was a big move, something that they needed to do to well balance the running game so that way it's not so much on Lamar Jackson's shoulders. Then you look at the overhaul that the Commanders have made. And I alluded to it earlier in the show with certain things I was saying that I feel like there's at points, there's still a few steps behind, and they're going to get exposed this Sunday. I feel like it's going to happen. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I would love for this team to be on a completely different level and to learn from even these wins that there's certain things they have to improve on and be able to improve each and every week. I would love that. But we're not in a perfect world. And there's no way, in my opinion, if the Commanders can do what they've done to these teams over the past 3 weeks to the Baltimore Ravens and blow them out. There's no way. Baltimore's defense isn't equipped for that type of action upon them. They can stop it. They do have a great defense, and in my opinion, at certain aspects, have a better defense than the Commanders do. Their offense definitely has been putting up explosive numbers. You got to look at the teams that the Commanders have been playing over these 4 weeks. The 4 wins in the past 5 weeks. You have to truly take a look at it, and I'm going to break it down again as we look at the fact that, yes, they started it off with a 21-18 win over the Giants at home, okay, winning 7 field goals to 6, followed by the fact they beat the Bengals on the road. That was a huge win and an explosive win from their offense. But you're also playing a Bengals team that's barely been able to muster up one win this season. So that's your second consecutive win. Your third one, you routed the Cardinals in another consecutive away game and embarrassed them. But they do not have a good defense, and their offense has been suspect, considering the fact that they are still working on regaining chemistry with Kyler Murray because he was out a good portion of last year, and Marvin Harrison Jr.'s stuff going on with his NIL deal and certain elements of how they were practicing it didn't surprise me that they beat them. It surprised me to the extent that they beat them, yes, but I even said when I predicted the Cardinals to win that game that I wouldn't be surprised if the Commanders won because of certain things I just pointed out. Followed by this past week when they played the Browns and they mollywopped them 34-13. I did predict that to happen, and I did predict it to be a little bit of a closer of a game. So I thought Deshaun Watson would wake up a little bit, but I was wrong. So we've seen the epic decline of Deshaun Watson, and I just went through all that. Now we're here in Baltimore. Okay? A team that's going to be your biggest test so far inside 6 weeks of the season. Did we even expect the Commanders to be 4-1 at this point after 5 games? No. If you said that before this season, send it to me on social media in my messenger. Let's verify that. If you really said that, because if you thought they were going to be 4-1 coming into Baltimore, you either got lucky with your prediction or you got the Doc Brown book from the future. I don't know. I'm trying to be as nice about this as possible when it comes to that. But right here and now, Baltimore Ravens. Yes, they are 3-2. Yes, they do not have as good of a record as the Commanders. Okay. They're only 1 game behind, even though they're in a completely different conference, the AFC conference. Not anywhere close to a division. This is not a divisional game. The Ravens had a huge, huge win over the Bills, okay? The Ravens, the week before that, also had a pretty tough matchup with the Cowboys. The Cowboys were playing at their best, and the Cowboys are not trash this year. They've got some things they still got to work on, like the Commanders, and they're not far behind, still nipping at the heels of the win they just got this past week. The Raiders, looking at that game for what it was, you can argue multiple things. Uncle Rico is doing his job in that game. The only other loss they have was a tough matchup they had in the first game of the season against the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, which that was a rematch of the AFC Championship. And from that, they figured out their identity as even this past week, when you look at this past weekend when they beat the Bengals, it was a divisional matchup. They won 41-38. The fact that you can win a game when the other team's quarterback finally has got this team to where he's starting to overcome the obstacles they've had throughout this season, because their record at this point, in my opinion, doesn't reflect their caliber of play. The Bengals are still a good team. They've just had a tough schedule and had some tough luck throughout this season, and it might require a coaching change because they've got talent on their team. The reason why that game was so close, 1, interdivisional game, and 2, there are still talented players playing on this team, which is why the Bengals barely lost this game in overtime, I mind you, 41-38. Now we fast forward to here week 6. You have a 3-2 Ravens team. It could have easily be 4-1 right now had it not been for that Raiders game. On top of that, you still only lost by 1 score. The 2 games you have lost have been by single possessions. After that, you look at the Commanders, who, even though they are 4-1, have a better record, they got their expletives kicked on Monday, not Monday, but that first game against the Buccaneers in week 1, 37-20. That woke them up to where they're at right now. Okay. The Ravens, the games they have lost into, the Raiders, but to the Chiefs by 1 possession. And they're at the caliber with the Chiefs of what they were last year in the AFC Championship. And now they have Derrick Henry. In these games they've been winning, especially against the Bills team, which there are questions with the Buffalo Bills, but the fact that the Ravens beat them decisively, the fact that they not only beat the Ravens decisively, they beat the Bengals like they did. And then on top of that, you got to look at the fact that the way they beat the Cowboys with managing the clock the way that they did. I feel like the Ravens have the edge in this game. I really do. I'm going with the Ravens to win this game, even though I don't want to. My heart says I want the Commanders to win, and I'm pulling for the Commanders when I watch this game. I want to see them win. And it's not far from home. You don't have to travel that far, so that's another plus. Different crowd. There will be Commanders fans in attendance. I mean, with it being close, people that live in the DMV area, there's going to be a lot of Commanders fans over there. It's going to be an atmosphere to see. I mean, that's why I feel like they should have pushed this game back. This shouldn't be a 1 o'clock game. It should be the Sunday night game. It should arguably be the contention for the Monday night game because the Jets do not deserve to be a Monday night football. Maybe because of all the drama going on within the locker room and the fact that it's let go of their head coach. Maybe that's why you really want to have this be Monday night football's game of the week. But I feel like this matchup right here, with all the hype behind Derrick Henry coming to the Ravens and all the hype over the past 5 weeks with Jaden Daniels, and especially over the offseason with bringing him in and the changes his team made, and especially seeing the positive things that have come out of all that throughout the first month and some change, 5 weeks, only 5 weeks of this season. This should be the game of the week this week, but it's not. We'll be talking about it like it's the game of the week after, I bet. I think the game's going to be close. The close games I predicted this year have not gone my way. But the way that the Ravens have been playing, especially against really good teams, and unless we just find out that what I said is 1,000% true, that the only reason why the Commanders have 4 straight wins is the type of teams they've played here recently, I don't think they're going to get blown out. I don't think it's going to be like when the Ravens hosted the Bills and won 35-10. I think it's going to be close. I'm going to say I just don't think that both teams are going to see, it's really tough when I'm thinking about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Derrick Henry's not going to run for I mean, he might actually. I could be wrong because I've said it throughout. The Commanders have struggled with their pass defense in certain aspects, but not last week against the Browns. But of course, it's not hard to when you got Deshaun Watson playing. That's why this week's kind of tough for me to predict a score, because they're playing against a team that their offense is pretty much like Big Brother to Jaden Daniels, because Jaden Daniels is doing things like a young Lamar Jackson was doing, and if not better, because Lamar Jackson wasn't putting up a 91% completion percentage on Monday Night Football in his rookie year. Lamar Jackson wasn't playing like this. He did become an MVP early on in his career, but Lamar Jackson didn't play like Jaden Daniels has been over the past 4 weeks. It's going to be a shootout in some ways, but it's going to be up and down because both defenses have been playing really well this year. We're either going to see a really low-scoring contest or a really high-scoring contest. But at the end of it, I'm predicting the Ravens to win the game, and I'm predicting it to be by no more than 10 points. I still consider that a low-scoring game when you look at the Commanders of old and what they were to now. If you only lose by 10 points, 17 points was a tough loss week 1 against the Bucs, and the Bucs are a good team. Baltimore's a better team. They're not going to be able to play like they did in week 1 and be able to still have the respect they've had over the past 4 weeks. Their defense is going to have to continue to step up. Luvu is going to have to continue to play great. Their secondary has been doing okay, but they got exposed in week 1, and that's what I'm afraid of happening in this week. I'm afraid that the up front close battles are going to be good, but they're going to get enough runs off, enough rushes off from the tongue twisting because I need water. I will get it in a second. But they're going to get enough established runs off with Derrick Henry to the play action is going to work out, and they're going to get some deep bombs. That's what I'm afraid of. And deep bombs meaning over 20-plus yard completions. That is my concern in this game. Not that Derrick Henry is going to run for 100 to 150 plus and score several rushing touchdowns, which could still happen if the Commanders don't show up, because their defense didn't show up in week 1, and they're one of only 5 true competitive teams, in my opinion, even though there was some closeness in other games throughout too. And in the Giants game is a divisional game. You can expect that each time, just like we still have to play them one more time, and you still have to play the Eagles and Cowboys twice. So that's still 5 more tough matchups that you have ahead. It's still very early on in the year, and I think this is one of the biggest tests. If they can bounce back like they did when they lost to the Bucs, that's why I feel like this is going to be a tough loss, but they're going to bounce back in the upcoming weeks. The Ravens win this game by 10 points or less. It's not going to be a blowout, but that's my prediction for this Sunday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. The Commanders will play well in spots, but their secondary's been exposed at certain points, and especially during week 1, and the Ravens are going to pounce on that. They're going to try to run the ball early and establish the run, and even though the numbers might not be as pretty as they've been throughout the past 5 weeks for Derrick Henry, they're going to establish enough of a run to where this team can get some deep passes off 15 to 20-plus yards, connect on them, because the secondary of the Commanders has been suspect at points, and that's where the Ravens are going to do damage. And they win by 10 points or less. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really, really hope I'm wrong. Now, I'll acknowledge your comments here shortly, but before that, we have to take this into our final part, now that we've given our prediction, and that is to the final drive.
We bet on ourselves, so what you expect? A die-hard fan never live with regret.
And here at the final drive, we'll get into the closing thoughts here momentarily, but we have comments that we have to acknowledge. While I was going on my rant about the possibilities of the Ravens game, we have to look at what you, the viewer, have been saying. And mainly Sick Diggy, which I greatly appreciate you, my man, helping me out with the live production of this show. Definitely keeping things going in the comments for those who may see something that you say or hear something that I'm saying and decide to jump in on the action before we close this stream. He says the game is Baltimore's to lose. If the Ravens make bad choices due to Lamar Jackson getting in his own way, the Commanders better capitalize. If the first part happens and he gets in his own way, the Commanders will win this game. I have no doubt. And in the 2 losses, he got in his own way. But in the 3 wins, which still more wins than losses, and the more wins, he has played like he's supposed to for the most part, and has leaned on the abilities of Derrick Henry in his rushing game and kept the ball out of Lamar's hands from a running aspect, which has been really nice to see. We've seen more production from the running game being on the shoulders of Derrick Henry throughout the past 4 weeks. And there was that one questionable game where Cole and I were even talking about in Total Football Talk that if Lamar Jackson continues to run like he is, there's no point in having Derrick Henry there, and it's not going to work out. Well, not that they were listening to us, but they were most likely talking about that within the locker room themselves, because that in itself, it was a big difference maker in the past couple of weeks as to why the Ravens have won like they have in the past 3 consecutive games. Because again, they started off the season, they started off the season pretty questionable when you look at it, losing their first 2 games. All right. It wasn't looking good for the Ravens starting out. They won 3 consecutive games, just like the Commanders have won 4. You have to give them credit where it's due. So I think that the chances of Lamar Jackson slipping into that are less likely than the pressure being a little bit too much from the defensive front of the Ravens for Jaden Daniels, because he's got to step up. It's just like what you said earlier about Jaden Daniels earlier on in the show there, Sick. I'm trying to find this this comment that you said. Yes, right here. Daniels needs to spend more time in the video room studying the options in secondary, taking more notes, and reading the defenses better. He also, I would say reading the pressure from the front, he does pretty good because if it's too much, then he goes into his run option of the RPO and has had success there too, where previous quarterbacks since RG3 have not had that same option, because pretty much RG3 was the first quarterback that we saw here for this franchise do something similar to that with RPO plays. So, yes, I would say between that comment that you have right here, as well as this right here, they better capitalize in that moment, because it's not going to be the defense that makes the mistakes. It's mainly going to be Lamar Jackson. And I don't see Derrick Henry being a factor in fumbling the ball. He's fumbled the ball at points in his career, and sometimes at big moments. But I don't think that this is too big of a moment for him to have that happen in. We're gonna see that being on the back burner, in my opinion. The Ravens running game will be all kinds of problems for the Commanders defense, especially if Derrick Henry is given the ball, which runs back to what I was saying earlier in the show as well. So great statement there as well. As always, you know what to do right here if you are new to the program. This game could get bowling shoe ugly, or worst case, a total dumpster fire. It really could. It could be that way for either team, depending on which. It's going to be the battle of who makes mistakes and who capitalizes on those mistakes. Because again, like I was saying earlier in the show, you can't be perfect. Each team is going to make a mistake at some point. It's very rare that we see what we've been seeing out of the Commanders team, and especially the Ravens bouncing back like they have been the past few weeks has been nice to see. I'm just not ready to crown the Commanders yet. Give it till week 8. That's my feelings on this. And luckily, I will be in attendance week 8. So if they win this game and they win the following week, at that point, and that point alone, after they play the Panthers, because I'm pretty sure in that game they should get the win there, considering how they've been playing in recent history, not just this season. This game's going to be huge. This team could be potentially 6-1 going into week 8 if they win against the Ravens. I'd love to say that, but I have a feeling they're more than likely going to be 5-2 in my guess. But we'll talk more about that next week after we've reviewed this game. The Ravens are a team built on defense first, exactly, which is why that's concerning for me. Because like you said, that secondary, he needs to study it, that being Daniels, and especially studying the secondary of the Ravens, because they do it very, very well. The Ravens and the Vikings are probably two of my favorite secondaries of the NFL right now. And if I were to make a top 5, they would definitely be in it. And they're getting the results to prove it. Defense wins championships. Ray Lewis, absolutely. And considering this is the team he has his DNA ingrained in, you got to look at this Ravens team. This is going to be a very tough matchup, which is why, unless Lamar Jackson gets in his own way, like you said, Sick, in the comments, I feel like more than likely the Ravens are going to win this game by at least 10 points or less. I don't think it's going to be more than that. But we shall see as time goes on. With us being here for the final drive, this has been another fun episode with you guys here in the comments, whether you've been watching on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. It's definitely been fun between Total Football Talk Extra earlier today and now the Commanders Gridiron Report. I have now spent a decent amount of my Friday evening after having a busy Friday earlier doing this, and I enjoy it. Between this and Monday morning, it's the only 2 times of the week that I get the opportunity to really do it right now. Got a lot going on personally, professionally. Not complaining about it. It's definitely good to be busy, but priorities have come first, which is why this show is not on Tuesday afternoons right now. I'm going to try my best, and I've been saying this for the past few weeks, to get it back on next Tuesday. It's Tuesday, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time. This is the time that it normally goes live. But I can't promise anything. Just I have to feel out how the next few days go. Being an adult, it is what it is. You got things going on. Sometimes you just can't do the things that you enjoy when you want to do them. And I know it's tough to continue to maintain a decent viewership of a product when you're doing it at inconsistent times. And I'm doing the best I can to make it work. To the people out there who are partnering with me with providing streams for me to showcase this show, Team MBS Media and A7BN Sports, and the others out there as well. Thank you to those out there for the platform, as well as to those of you who take the time to recognize talent when I make an awesome promo and tag you in it and click the share button. So, because as time goes on, and I'm very consistent with that, even if I'm not producing the show on the day that I normally would be producing the show on. Very good at producing a promo before I go live. There's been some inconsistencies for some of these partnerships that have not been clicking that share button. I'm not a threatening person. I don't like, creating conflicts. I will step up in the moment if I have to when it comes to conflicts and stand tall and hold my ground. But the one thing I will say is if there are people out there who are partners of the program who are not clicking that share button to get the message of that show, that episode being aired that day, there's no point in me continuing that and taking the time to tag you in it. These shorts, these reels that are gaining viewers for your brand off of my hard work, because I'm bringing something special. I'm not the greatest, but I am pretty good at what I do and what I put my heart into. All right. So if you can't click the share button, because I'm watching, I get the notification when you click that share button. Instagram primarily, Facebook sometimes, Snapchat, not really counting that one. It's personal. But if you can't take the time to click that share button, and we're partners for this program right here, as I'm saying this, what's the point of continuing it? Now, could be some jealousy because of the thing I've worked hard into building over a little bit over a year and rebuilding myself from into, and it's paid off because I've had help from others who actually want to put time into the brand too. If you're jealous because that might be at a bigger viewership than yours, that's not my problem. You're not doing things right if that's the case. I can give you some advice. I know what I'm doing. I just don't have the time to do it. I got a life outside of podcasting. I got a life outside of the media. Can't always be here. 2 days a week I give you out of my life. 2. Right now, Mondays and Fridays. That's what I can muster. If you can't take the heat, send me a message. If you don't want to do it, I can remove myself as a potential stream for this product onto that platform. I'm not naming them because, like I said, there's more than just those 2. There's multiple ones out there that are getting tagged in this stuff. So look at it for what it is. Help me help you, because I'm taking the time. It doesn't take a lot of time for me anymore to make these little promos and reels and shorts and stuff and that I tag you in. But it takes a few extra seconds to search your name, click it, put it in that, and you don't have you have the audacity to either A, not accept the collaboration, or B, not share the content. When there's other people doing other things on these other associated brands that pale in comparison to what we're doing right here. And I'm doing this to not only help myself grow out here, but to help those that are a part of it, bring you along for the ride. No matter which brand takes off. If mine takes off, there's more seats available because I'm going to need help putting this thing together, because I can't do it all by myself. And I've got some other help out there. Not much, but then there's more on the way. Building something special. Those of you who really want to be a part of something special. Can't pay you right now. Not making but so much on it. But, there's investment that goes into these services. And that's what I want to talk about, the closing thoughts of this. We've gone into the entire synopsis of the Commanders. Now we're going to talk about the future of this show. All right. You can't click the share button. If you can't accept the collaboration, and I'm watching because I manage this. I am the producer, the creator, and as of right now, the talent that's talking on here as the analyst of what I see from this team. If you who are part of this, There's one-off things. I get it. All right. If you did it last week, you couldn't do it this week and stuff like that, I'm not petty. I'm not after one time. But if there's a pattern of you not being supportive for what you as a brand are a part of, I'm going to take it right on out of there because I ain't got time for the BS. So bringing that to the forefront, bringing that to the here and now, because if you want to be a part of something special, I'll bring you with me, but you got to be able to offer me something. And the one thing that all you have to do to offer to me is click a share button or accept a collaboration. That speaks volumes to me as the person who takes the time to make what is right here in front of you. Okay. For the people who are watching right now, and we get decent amount of viewership on this when it's not live. It's because I share the expletive out of it on different platforms and make other promos and make other shorts and stories and all sorts of stuff to keep this thing going. All right. I don't have to do this. This is just like people, the time I spend and invest in this, you look at people who are adults that play video games. All right. You play video games for multiple hours in the evening to wind down. When I get home from work and do the adulting stuff, and then I have a little bit of time to wind down, I make graphics like this, and this, and this, and this. I don't watch TV shows and watch the fluffy drama BS. I look at sports highlights and different things on different teams so that way I can show up here or on Total Football Talk and know exactly what the expletive I'm talking about. Pretty close to it, at least. And I enjoy the guests that we have on here. I'm going to start bringing guests on here to talk Commanders talk soon. It's just the inconsistencies in time in which I can produce it. It's tough for me to schedule other people, and I have to work within my means because life and other things are more important than this. But if you are butthurt because this show is not playing at the time that was originally discussed, or if you are butthurt, it's something because I don't have the time to invest in this like I want to. I can't help that. You don't live my life. I shouldn't be breathing right now, to be honest with you. Just holy powers of above, in my opinion, is still there's reasons why I'm here, okay, and reasons why I'm still at the sound and volume of what I am today and what I've been able to pull off outside of this game and in real life. Okay, got a championship up there that I don't always wear, but you already know because it's in the promos and in the commercials of a dude with long hair and a championship belt. They take that thing very seriously. If you want to be a champ out here, just like the Commanders have been proven over the past 4 weeks, they are champs. Be a part of something special. You just need to do the little things that were agreed upon and asked about. I don't have time to go back and forth with it. And I want to keep things going, which is why I still include the other partnerships that are in these streams, and even when I rebroadcast them. This isn't even stuff that's just, it's live. I have more partnerships than what I talk about. We have radio stations that we are on in different affiliates that are listed throughout. This is the video broadcast, but it still is included. Don't be surprised if you get a message here soon that says, I have decided to take my talents elsewhere. Because people get a very, very small window of time to make an impact in certain ways. And this is the one where I make the biggest impact, okay, when it comes to talking sports. This right here. And if it's not working for me, I will shut it down. The one thing I will not shut down is SHOWSTOPPER Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome. There are some changes coming, not only between some people coming in, but certain transitions and things you see, there are going to be some changes. The only thing I have to say is that I need more time to do that. And it may be closer towards the holidays, the end of the year, beginning of the year, before I get a chance to really invest some time into it. Because while the weather is starting to get cold over here on the East Coast, now that we're in the fall, there are some things that I need to do before it gets too cold. And now having the weekend to take care of that, that's what I'm going to do. So if people around me, you're watching this, who are personally in my life watching this, they want to do things this weekend, no offense, I'm not available unless it's an emergency, because priorities are going to be continuing on once I hit the end button of this stream. Phone's always open to talk. You can always reach out. I'll talk to you, you know. But other than that, that's about it. My closing thoughts on the Commanders, my closing thoughts on this show, as I got to that point when I was going a little bit to the side. This show's still going to happen. Although I will admit, we should be with more episodes than 28 at this point between last year and now. I barely found time to get this thing going during the summertime. I had a lot going on, that personally and professionally, no matter which way you want to weigh it, it was weighing me down. It's like a dark cloud. And those times are over now, as far as the stress from that. And it's been worse at other points in my life, which is why, even though it was a tough time had what happened to me before with the stroke and how I overcame that, there would have been no way I would have survived this. This in certain points this year has been tough. And I think what happened before toughened me up for this kind of year, which is why we didn't have this show going on for a while. And I had to put this one on the back burner. And I enjoyed In or Out Sports Debate a little bit longer than I previously planned, because I knew that I had to bring this back, but I was having a lot of fun with that show. But now that we've gotten to this point, I don't know when that show is going to come back, as we're talking about future shows and future things with this product. I don't know where we're going to be with the In or Out Sports Debate before the end of the year. That's breaking news. So I have been advertising D-Willie in the evenings coming back sooner than it is. But even then, the date, I plan on it coming back in September, and with everything going on, I couldn't make it work to be back as soon as I wanted it to. So that show will be back before the end of the year, but I don't know when. Right now, I could tell you that with myself and what I do on a regular basis with this, we'll be back each and every week throughout the NFL season. Total Football Talk will be here every week. Total Football Talk Extra will be here at minimum till the end of the CFL season. And then talking it over with my man Ryan McCarthy, who's here. Total Football Talk Extra in the comments. My man Ryan McCarthy right here. We did a great show earlier. Looking forward to clipping the episodes out from that. But between Total Football Talk Extra, and this show, these are the three main projects I'm going to have right now. I don't have time for anything else. In one hand, I would love to have more time to do it, but in the other hand, I'm enjoying the busyness of it. Work-life balance to an extent, because this, even though it's fun, this is work. As everything has happened over the past couple of years, I've realized more that there's more into life than what my routine was. And, I'm also leaving that opening for others who want to be a part of it again, to be a part of it. My phone's always been on the entire time. Until this year of finding more time, I didn't have it. I was keeping myself too busy to not think of other things that had already been endured to overcome them. Now I'm at a point where, with this show, I can say I finally found a place, whether it be Tuesday or Friday now. If I can't do it Tuesday, it's going to be on Friday, that it will be going on. And Total Football Talks 2 shows per week. Other than that, D-Willie in the evening will be a pre-recorded show. It will not be live anymore, so I'll find a time to record it at some point in the evening one day, chop up a few things, and then put it out there as a produced video, not a live. That is a spoiler alert if I haven't said that already. So you will still get that, but it's not going live, and producing a live show is completely different than what you expect, because you have to have everything prepped to be able to click buttons, engage with the audience, and there's no room for, I messed up, I need to go say that again so I can chop it up and put it into the show. No, you have to be on, which is why recording will be so much easier for me than it was when I first started this game. I love football. I love sports. And these projects will continue. And D. Willie in the evening will be a special project too. But what makes it special is the people. So those of you watching it live, watching it syndicated, if it wasn't for you, this would not be a thing. Just because it's a low viewership live right now on one channel doesn't mean it's not looking pretty good on another. So those of you watching between Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. I think that's it. And it is it. Because X wants to charge, and I ain't paying. I already pay for enough. So thank you all who've been tuning in so far. As always, remember to subscribe now and never miss out on new content. As we have only one more thing left to do, thank you again for watching episode 28. Staying a part of my ramble over the past 20 minutes for how I felt on certain things. The point's got to get across. While the audio, the MP3 versions or the MP4 versions are available to those who aren't clicking that button, get on it or roll out. As we are rolling out of this episode 28, thank you all for the time. I will see you next week. Not sure again if it'll be Tuesday. If you don't see me at Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, you will see me by some point Friday afternoon or evening. We've only got one more thing left to do, and that is look at one badass outro. I am Drew Willingham, and as always, to everyone watching this live or replay, stay safe out here in these streets.
Commanders, where my soldiers, right side, Commanders, where my soldiers, left side, Commanders, where my soldiers, watch the middle, Commanders, where my soldiers, now we step, where my soldiers, right side, Commanders, where my soldiers, left side, now we step, where my soldiers, watch the middle. Commanders, where my soldiers, hit 'em.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
You don't have to go home, but you got to get your cell phone up out of here. It was a fun week covering this show and all the contents about it. Stay tuned. You may see me next week on whatever brand you're listening on right now, or you may not. Stay safe out here in these streets.